Hey guys, tonight we're patching together more than just leather. Think time travel through calluses and cowhide. Picture this. A boot slumps on your workbench like a drunk at closing time. Its soles split wider than the Grand Canyon. If the Grand Canyon reeked of manure and existential fatigue. You run a thumb over the welt where heel meets history. Each crack tells a story, but not the PG kind. Buckle up, or rather, lace up, though honestly. You probably won't survive this without at least 3 metaphors for decay. Cool leather greets your palm, summer barns, and winter mud preserved in its pores. The owner's a wheat farmer with hands like knotted oak. Guy probably hasn't felt his fingertips since the Nixon administration. You smirk, remembering medieval cobblers used oxblood glue actual oxen blood, which explains those dark ages health codes. No OSHA back then, just Viking blisters and tetanus parties. Sole separations worse up close. The gap yawns like a toddler mid-tantrum. You flick a wood screw from your apron, wedging it between layers. Here's a fun fact. Roman soldiers hammered hobnails into soles for traction, 60 per boot, each tapped in with the rhythm of conquest. Could have used that on Black Friday at Costco. Honestly, needle pricks your thumb as you test the thread, your blood, now part of the artifact. Historians still argue whether 15th century pattens were status symbols or just awkward medieval crocs. The boot's tongue lolls sideways. Last week's storm probably drowned its manners. You hum, noticing a rusty spur mark, maybe a horse's bad mood fossilized in iron. Rot blooms beneath the insole, blackened folds, whisper of flooded fields and cut corners. Your all hesitates, repair this, and you're basically enabling the farmer's refusal to buy new kicks. But then a glint. Tapping the heel reveals a child's marble caked in dirt. Possible theories: accidental loss, desperate bribe, or tiny art heist. Your nippers crunch through decayed stitching, the sounds ASMR for people who hate relaxation. Wind rattles the workshop door, or is it the ghost of every cobbler who ever died mid-stitch? Cobwebs cling to the window like lace veils, filtering light into something manageable. You spit on the whetstone, sharpening your knife gross, but Traditi, wait. Leather peels back to expose goat hair. Quirky, right? Turns out 18th century Alpine herdsmen lined boots with it for insulation. Highly absorbent, highly scratchy, tough trade-off for warm toes. You pocket 3 strands for future witchcraft experiments. Clock ticks louder now. It's accusing you of something. Each tool's shadow stretches longer, morphing into accusatory fingers. The farmer's boot becomes a Rorschach test. Is that a storm cloud, or just your student loans? You dunk a brush in neatsfoot oil, scent like Jim's socks, and nostalgia. Outside, a truck backfires. Your heart mimics the rhythm of the awl. Blotting the leather's wounds, you wonder if durability's just another word for stubbornness. Threading the bristles takes 3 tries. Your eyes aren't what they were at 20. Blame the 1,500 hours spent squinting at vamp curves. Remember that crocodile dung sunscreen Egyptian tanners used? Yeah, let's be grateful for modern SPF. Midnight oil's just a phrase now, your lamp's LED, buzzing like an angry hornet. Workbench creaks as you lean in. Wood remembers every project, every curse muttered over snapped awls. This boot's seen more miles than your last relationship, both needing repairs you're not qualified to make. Pause. Breathe. The welt's edge curls up defiance or surrender. You'll need 18 stitches to reseat it, 18 chances to second-guess your life choices. Glue bottle wheezes its last breath typical. Tools conspire against progress, classic Tuesday. Footsteps echo outside, probably that stray tabby judging your life again. You dip the last nail in beeswax, sealing its fate. Hammer echoes like a metronome. Each strike says now, now, now. First light claws through the window. You've aged 7 years tonight. The boot sits straighter now, but not smug, more like a teenager after their first therapy session. Oil gleams on fresh stitches, tiny bridges spanning canyons of wear. Your hands shake, but the boot doesn't care. It's felt worse tremors, farmers' mountains, maybe a UFO landing, who knows. You definitely smell burnt toast. Dawn arrives coated in pollen and second-guessing. Workshop dust settles like snow on a war zone. The boot's ready or not. Either way, it's out of your hands now. Sunlight slants through warped glass. The kind your apprentice swore was salvaged from a sunken galleon. You're pretty sure he meant discount glazier's dumpster. Dawn paints the boot's injuries in merciless gold. That heel isn't just frayed, it's unraveling like a spy caught mid-lie. Your thumbnail catches on a thread worn translucent. Medieval cobblers called this devil's hair, a prescient term, given how it mocks your efforts. History remembers them boiling ox tendons for glue. You've got a jar labeled industrial adhesive that smells suspiciously like despair. 3 hidden gashes glare up now. The left one winks, a leather Cheshire cat. You press the edges together. They resist like quarreling siblings. Not stitchable. Not yet. That's the thing about dawn light. It's the world's oldest tattletale. The workbench creaks as you lean closer. Beeswax candles from last night's toil still sweat on the sill. Your breath stirs dust motes, a miniature snow globe of neglect. Historians still argue whether 18th century farriers or cobblers drank more gin. Both, probably. You reach for the awl, your fingers brush something damp. Morning condensation. Leaky roof. Neither. The boot's tongue droops a tear-shaped stain onto oak. Salt crusts the rim. A farmer's sweat or a storm's residue. The boot keeps its secrets. Rot hides in the arch black as a bishop's socks. You scrape gently. Flakes cascade, an entire ecosystem of decay. A 1637 leatherworker's manual prescribed fermented barley poultices for this. You've got elbow grease and a muttered prayer. Threading the needle takes 4 tries. Your hands shake not from age, but that 4th coffee. The eye rebels, denying entry. You whisper the old rhyme, silver through steel, or suppers repealed. Nonsense, but your grandfather swore by it. First, stitch bites. The leather resists, then relents. Pulling the thread taut feels like drawing a bowstring. 16th century cordwainers used catgut for this. You're using nylon, progress or sacrilege. The boot doesn't care. It just needs to walk. A splinter gnaws your palm, vengeance from the pine bench. Your hammer rests nearby, its handle whittled with Viking runes. The apprentice's handiwork. He'll be late again, probably chasing that baker's daughter. Youth's a luxury cobbler's forfeit at 16. You peel back the insole, a mouse skeleton grins up. Not actual mice, just crumbs fossilized into a rodent-shaped Rorschach. The farmer's boot doubles as a pantry. Classic. Last month, you found a 1923 wheat penny in a dandy's Oxford. Squinting reveals hairline cracks in the welt, like desert canyons on a microscopic scale. 8 hours of work balloon into 80. Your stomach growls a protest. The bread box offers a petrified roll. You name it lunch archaeology, and not anyway. Outside, the village clock tower chimes. Each note stretches, molten bronze dripping through air. 7 strikes. 8. 9. Funny how time warps when you're staring down a mutinous piece of footwear. Newton never cobbled, or he'd have written different laws. The needle snaps. A shard skitters into shadow, probably to haunt your dreams. Your sigh could power a hot air balloon. 5 minutes lost scavenging for backups. Every drawer coughs up thimbles, punch pliers, things that belong in a dentist's cabinet. New needle, fresh thread. The repair resumes a Sisyphean ballet. Your mind drifts to shipwrights caulking hulls, blacksmiths quenching blades. All trades share this truth. The world is held together by stubborn people, ignoring their screaming muscles. Light shifts. Shadows retreat. The frayed threads glow like exposed nerves. You dab them with gum tragacanth. Egyptian mummy wrappers used the same binder. Macabre, but effective. The farmer's boot slurps the mixture. A good sign. Maybe. A dandelion seed floats through the window. Lands on the toe cap. Brief beauty before your breath scatters it. Cobbling's full of these moments. Ephemeral grace notes in a symphony of calluses. You arch your spine. It cracks like a dam breaking. 3 stitches in, you spot the real problem, the shank's bent. Fixing this isn't sewing. It's orthopedics. Your pliers hover. One adjustment could save the boot or snap its spine. Occupational hazard. Cobbler as chiropractor. You twist. The leather screams. Silence. Then a sigh of relief. The shank straightens beneath your grip. Crisis averted. For now, you wipe sweat with a rag that's seen better centuries. Napoleon's troops lined their boots with similar linen. To prevent blisters, not mop brows, high noon bleaches the workshop. Heat makes the glue pot belch. You prop the door open, a breeze stumbles in, drunk on meadow pollen. Flies circle like tiny vultures. They'll regret entering a room smelling of pitch and cheap optimism. The heel's almost stable. Almost. One strategic nail could clinch it. Your hammer rises, hesitates. Precision requires stillness. But your pulse races like a hare. Breathe, strike. The nail sinks flush. Victory, temporary, but sweet as stolen honey. Your canteen's down to warm dregs. Swallowing tastes like licking a pond. Note to self, refill before the well's claimed by that rancid choir of frogs. Every village needs a mascot. Ours is amphibious and flatulent. Lining up, the soul requires geometry Euclid would applaud. Angles align. Edges kiss. You clamp them, squinting for gaps. None. Praise whatever saints watch over mad artisans. The vice creaks a mechanical yawn. 3 hours till sunset. Maybe 4. Blunt needle, check. Waxed thread, check. Delusions of adequacy, double check. You pierce leather with ritual slowness. Stitch 1, anchor. Stitch 2, commitment. Stitch 3, no going back. Cobbling's just controlled punctures, really. Life's the same. Fabric stiffens under your touch. You soften it with mink oil, extracted through methods PETA wouldn't endorse. Industrial revolutionaries would have used whale blubber. Progress is weird. The leather drinks greedily, resurrecting supple memories of pasture life. Blisters sprout on your index finger. Battle scars, you wrap them in rag strips, makeshift bandages soaked in rosemary oil. Medieval remedy. Your pharmacy's a spice rack and wishful thinking. Works better than the CVS salve, honestly. The boot starts resembling footwear again, ankle curve restored. Toe box no longer crumpled like a love letter. Historians still argue whether cobbler comes from cob or copal, old words for lump or link. You vote cupel. Mortar bonding metal, poetry in etymology. Sun dips below the stable roof. Workshop dims time for candles. Their glow reveals a mist welt stitch. Of course, the needle winks at you, Cheshire cat redux. You grimace. 10 minutes of rework beckons. Your stomach howls again. That fossilized roll mocks from its crumb-strewn plate. Hunger versus craftsmanship. Priorities. You reach, hesitate, grab the needle. Bread can wait. Blisters can't. The needle pricks your thumb, a sharp reminder of yesterday's blisters. Blood beads, same rusty hue as the soil clinging to the boot seams. You suck the wound, clean tastes like copper and cow pasture. That's when it hits, the memory of his hands. Calluses ridge the farmer's palms like irrigation ditches. You've seen Roman plowshares in museums, his grips just as weathered. He surrendered the boot like it wounded him to ask, kicked it onto your bench with forced nonchalance. Tripped in a foxhole, he mumbled, a lie as thin as his boot's lining. You'd noticed him lingering by the shop for weeks. Always at dusk, hat pulled low, pretending to study your window's dangling soles. Pride's a heavy cloak, smothers even practical pleas. Medieval serfs did the same, breaking tools before admitting they needed help. Historians still argue whether peasant stubbornness stemmed from dignity or terror of appearing weak. The boot's toe creak mirrors his voice. Dry, cracked, unyielding, his fingers drummed your workbench nails caked with clay. He'd been digging fence posts. Alone. Always alone. You've met his type before, men who think self-reliance means swallowing every ache. 13th century, monks wrote of farmers hiding injuries, working fields with broken ribs. One account mentions a plowman who sewed his own gashes with horsehair. You wonder if this one's tried that. His boot's inner lining shows crimson flecks, blood, or rusted buckthorn dye. He refused a chair, stood ramrod straight despite his limp. The boot's sole flapped like a wounded crow's wing. You'd asked about harvests, a safe topic. He'd grunted, barley's thin this year. Crows got the peas. Conversation died like embers doused with sand. Your awl grazes a pebble wedged in the heel. Flint still sharp enough to slice hide. Farmers carried these for cobbling quick fixes. An old trick, Saxon foot soldiers did the same during marches. You flick it into your found treasures jar. It clinks against a Civil War button. Smells linger in leather. Sweat, hay, wood smoke. His boot whispers of pre-dawn milking and midnight fox patrols. 19th century tanners claimed hides, retained memories. Quacks sold nostalgia boots made from loved ones' work aprons. Morbid, maybe, but this farmer's boot does feel autobiographical. The laces crumble as you unwind them. He'd tied them in triple knots, fisherman style. Odd inland farms rarely use those. Then you recall local legends. River floods from his youth. A man who survived rushing waters might overcompensate with knots. Psychiatrists would have a field day. Your window rattles. A breeze smuggles in honeysuckle. It carries the same sweetness that clung to his jacket. His wife's doing. She'd waved from their wagon once, apron fluttering like a surrender flag. You think of her kneading dough while he nursed pride in silence. Ragtime drifts from the tavern down street, a jaunty piano roll. The farmer's probably there now, sipping rye whiskey and scowling at jolly drinkers. You've seen him guard that boot like a state secret. To admit it needs repair, he'd rather chew glass. You peel back the torn lining, a pressed clover flutters out. 4 leaves, corners frayed from years trapped between leather and sweat. A talisman, accident. He's not the whimsical type, likely his daughter's doing, forced it in during some long ago spring. Stitching resumes. Waxed thread weaves through eyelets, each loop a wordless apology. For charge, for pity, for the indignity of depending on strangers. Apicius wrote of Roman elites complaining about uppity cobblers. Some grudges never die. Your oil lamp flickers, casting a hunched shadow that could be you or him. Backs bent under different burdens. Hands gnawed by different tools. You wonder if he'll thank you, or just nod and toss coins like they're contaminated. A knot forms in the thread, your tweezers attack it. Men like him built this valley, cracked their spines lifting stones for boundary walls. Let rheumatism chew their joints to dust. All while the gentry took credit for taming the wilderness, the repairs half done. His boot your bench, this fragile détente between necessity and shame. Outside, bullfrogs croak their twilight overture. You dip a brush in dye, color rises to meet the leather. A farmer's work is never done. Neither is a cobbler's. Somewhere beyond these walls, he's scrubbing his one good boot in a tin basin, scouring away mud and the humiliation of needing its twin restored. You daub the final patch. It blends seamlessly, rebellion made invisible, the way he'd want it. The needle balks at the leather stiff as a magistrate denying alms. You press harder, palms sweating against the bronze thimble's cold kiss. 17th century cobblers called this the widow's kiss, that stubborn gap where thread refuses to bite. Your hands remember the trick, twist clockwise before piercing. The needle relents, slipping through like a smuggler through city gates. 3 stitches in your thread snaps. Typical. Colonial Williamsburg reenactors swear by hog bristle threads, claims they're tougher than modern nylon. You've tried it, ended up with pig hair splinters for weeks. This calls for beeswax. Rolling the linen strand across golden wax, you catch your reflection in the jar. Dark crescents under your eyes, darker than the boot's weathered creases. Parchment thin leather tears as you reposition the awl, should have soaked it longer. An Egyptian papyrus mentions sandal makers dunking hides in date wine, supposedly softened even elephant hide. You doubt the farmer would appreciate his boots smelling like Pharaoh's hangover. Shame could have been a conversation starter. The repair manual lies open, pages splayed like a gutted fish. Chapter 11. Mending mail pride a stitch-by-stitch guide. You snort. If only the needle jabs your index finger, payback for laughing at ancient advice. Blood dots the leather, an accidental sealant. Iron Age tribes did this, purposefully bloodying their repairs. Claimed it bound spirit to object. Housewives still hide it, dabbing menstrual blood on doorframes for protection. Some traditions refuse to die. Pine resin smokes on your charcoal heater, its tang mingling with fresh stitches. Each loop pulls tighter, your breaths synced to the thread's rhythm. Historians still argue whether medieval cobblers ranked above or below executioners. Let them debate. You've got a farmer's dignity to darn. His boot fights you at every turn. Eyelets crack. Grommets revolt. The sole's edge curls like a dead maple leaf. You sing a lullaby your grandmother taught, Portuguese fado, between gritted teeth. The leather softens, or maybe you're imagining mercy. Midnight bells toll across the valley. Your oil lamp gutters casting twin shadows, one hunched over the bench, another pacing behind. The farmer's ghost, or your own doubts made flesh. You light a fresh wick. Shadows merge, resolve. A moth dive bombs the lamp, wings brushing your ear. You flinch, needle skewering the thumb webbing. Pain blooms, hot and bright. 14th century surgeons used cobbler's needles for sutures. One manual praises their uncommon straightness. You hiss a curse that would have made your mother wash your mouth with lye. The repaired patch mocks you puckered and proud. Napoleon's soldiers stuffed their boots with newspaper for insulation. You consider similar deception, padding the lump with lamb's wool, but he'd notice. Men who work the land know every lump, every cheat. Dawn's first light creeps in your enemy and accomplice. 3 windowsills ago, you swore you'd finish by moonrise. The boot's tongue protrudes pink and raw as a fresh burn. You dunk it in oak bark solution. Patience, the tanner's mantra, also the name of a Gloucester prostitute in 1892. Some jokes write themselves, threading the final eyelet your hands tremble, not from fatigue, from knowing what comes next, the walk home. His limp, the boot's first test. Saxon cobblers were buried with their awls, perhaps to fix death's sandals. You'd ask for softer assignments, maybe heavenly slippers. The needle rests, dull tip wedged in a crack. You'll find it next week rusty and accusatory. The boot stands resurrected, scars visible, but sealed. Outside, blackbirds debate the sunrise. You pour rye whiskey into your coffee, savoring the hiss of steam. DROWNING, Chinese letter. A toast to reluctant stitches, and the silence they sustain. The sketchbook hits the floor with a slap, pages splaying like a drunkard's confession. Yellowed drafts stare up, boot soles curved for feet that never came. A 1437 gilt ledger surfaces, your thumb staining vellum still crisp as betrayal. Medieval cobblers faced fines for using subpar goatskin. Edward III's Great Decree, paragraph 9. You trace a blueprint, steel-toed monstrosities meant for mining. Client name, Erasmus Holloway. Paid deposit. Vanished. Grease ghosts bloom under your palms. 19th century tallow, smudges immortalizing dead fingertips. Someone penciled margins with shopping lists. Hemp thread, lard, arsenic soap. Arsenic. Turns out Victorian boot stiffeners swore by Mordant Solutions. 1886 catalog. Advertised poison Polish. Guaranteed to preserve soul and soul. You sniff the page, regret it instantly. A pressed clover flutters out brittle as ancestral promises. Your grandmother's handwriting beneath for luck, though none came. The designs grow stranger, ankle straps lined with rabbit fur, soles hinged like bear traps, a boot for walking on lava. Historians still argue whether Renaissance inventors genuinely believed in fireproof footwear, or just took rich fools' money. Your coffee's gone tepid. You sip anyway, bitterness mirroring the sketch's ambition. 18th century Parisian cordwainers drank absinthe while working, claimed it liberated the cobbler's muse. Rotgut inspiration. You try sketching, nubby pencil, producing something between clog and snowshoe. Toss it aside. Moonlight catches an overlooked page, childish scrawl in crayon. Your own. Boots with spring-loaded heels. Wings stitched from kingfisher feathers. Notes in wobbly letters fly to Papa. He'd left that morning. The workshop's clock ticks louder each second, a small hammer on cold iron. Beneath the fantasies, a newspaper clipping. 1923. Obituaries. Holloway, Erasmus, D. in mine collapse, Cardiff. The date matches his deposit slip. Your awl rolls across the sketch, puncturing the inked mine shaft. Coincidence tastes like chapel incense, sharp and sanctimonious. A moth dies dramatically on your lamp, final act in a walnut oil spotlight. You flick it off, wings whisper soft against calluses. Medieval apprentices collected moth dust for love potions, or so the lies went. Easy way to dupe gullible boys into cleaning lamps. The repair manual mocks from the shelf, its spine cracked at grieving unfinished work. You hurl a spool at it. Miss hit a jar of badger hair brushes instead. Regency dandies used badger bristles to smooth boot seams, paid extra for the wild touch. Dawn's first licks turn dust, motes into floating empires. Your fist grinds them to nothing. The sketchbook demands closure pages, quivering like a beggar's outstretched palm. You soak Erasmus's design in linseed oil. Flame takes it, hungry. Ashes curl into a question mark. Farmers' carts clatter outside, real needs, real boots. No winged fantasies. No firewalkers. The workshop sighs resigned. You shut the sketchbook. Its clasp leaves a bruise on your palm, souvenir of the might-have-beens. The awl slips, not from clumsiness, but revelation. Peeling back the soul's fifth layer reveals a cavity no bigger than a child's palm. Inside lies a forget-me-not, dried to paper bones. It's purple, long faded to burial shroud gray. You freeze, an Egyptian king's tomb cracker, minus the curse. Tutankhamun's sandals hid sacred beetles in their soles. Mainstream museums love that tidbit, but this dust motes swirl as you lift the flower, stem intact despite decades pressed under miles. A slip of vellum clings beneath Catherine's seventh spring, 1888. Faded ink mimics the farmer's shy script. Your thimble taps the workbench, 3 beats for the dead. WWI soldiers stashed love letters in their boots. Heel stacks, quirky fact for wartime romantics. This feels heavier. The petals crumble at your breath, ancestor dust in the workshop air. 16th century, Florentine, cobblers allegedly sewed hair lockets into bridal shoes for fertility or folly. You catch yourself holding what's left of Catherine's bloom too gently. Historians still argue whether hidden compartments served practical secrecy or sentimental hunger. Both, you decide, watching a petal settle on your stained apron. Rain drums the roof, syncopated with your heartbeat. No farmer mentions daughters when handing over boots. Men like him bury stories deeper than root cellars. You probe the hollow's edges, no coins, no maps, just space shaped by absence. 18th century smugglers, hollowed heels for gem transport. This void feels louder. The flower's ghost clings to your fingerprints, preservation over pragmatism, who sacrifices structural integrity for a brittle blossom. Your needle hovers. Mend the leather flawlessly, erasing the hollow. Or honor the shrine. Outside, a cart horse sneezes, decision made. You slice a fresh lambskin patch, smaller than the cavity. Let the gap remain, but shield it. Conservationists would scream ethics of altering historical artifacts and all that. But this isn't King Tut's bling. It's a father's grief folded into tannin and time. Thread glides through beeswax, your version of a votive candle. Backstitches form a lattice over the opening, veil rather than seal. The original sole had 9 iron nails. You replace them with 6. 3 vacancies for whatever ghosts choose to linger. Night creeps in with coal smoke tendrils. You place the remnants of Catherine's flower on the windowsill, arrogant, perhaps. Let the moon decide its fate. Victorian children buried baby teeth in shoe soles. Superstitious tidbit from Gran's ramblings. This memory deserves better than leathery darkness. The repair ages the boot, wrinkles around the patched hollow like crow's feet. Pretty lies come easy in your trade, shine and polish as deception. But preserving this scar feels like truth-telling. Your knuckle brushes the latticework, roughness where there should be smoothness. Sacrilege or sacrament. Dawn finds the flower gone, stolen by wind or critters, or the farmhouse ghost your neighbors whisper about. Doesn't matter. The hollow remains, a mouth frozen mid-whisper. You buff the heel cap, each circle an apology and benediction. Some secrets demand their own architecture. Rain hammers the tin roof, 1,000 impatient clients tapping their coins. You cradle the boot's heel against your stomach, sanding in counter-rhythm to the downpour. Water snakes under the door, a sly vendor peddling mud. 17th century cordwainers prized rainy days. Dampness kept leather pliable. You're just trying not to ruin the darn thing. A droplet lands on the toe cap, sinister as a spider. Your rag smears it away. Waterproofings for sailors. Gran used to mutter. She lined boots with sheep fat during the Crimean War. Historians still argue whether those stains on Napoleon's boots were blood or beet soup. Your team beat, tyrants, deserve clumsy symbolism. The storm sighs, pause between acts. 3 heartbeats pass before thunder rattles your all collection. Medieval tanners believed lightning purified leather, hence those storm-cured gloves in Oxford's archives. You eye the ceiling. Don't get ideas. Sanded curves blur under your thumb, too smooth. A boot should remember its ridges. You etch faint lines with a nail, topography of grit. 1860 Montana miners buried boots as land claims. This one's seen gentler conquests. Glue pot bubbles, scent of horse hooves, and betrayal. You daub resin along the welt, a Dutch wax recipe stolen by an English earl's mistress in 1703. Quirky theft, lasting legacy. Your pinky nail collects excess, nature's cuticle treatment. Damp air fogs the boot's brass eyelets. Peering through one, the workshop warps into a fishbowl. A dangling shaving floats past, leather galaxy. Blame the absinthe you didn't drink. The farmer's fields drink greedily outside, you hope. His cabbages deserve this baptism. Your brush polishes the heel too glossy. A scratch restores character. Perfection's the enemy of stories waiting to happen. Lightning forks the room strobes. For half a breath, the boot stands manned by a shadow. You nod at your ghostly customer. He tips his hat, gone with the thunder. Rain mutters, now tired of its own drama. You press an ear to the workbench. The wood hums, vibration of 1,000 forgotten souls. Victorian workshops buried worn tools under floorboards for luck. You'll stick to whiskey. A puddle reflects your hunched silhouette, part goblin, part saint. Trade secret. All cobblers are both. Your back groans as you stretch, a catalogued symphony of pops. The boot watches, amused or judgmental. Unclear. Thread coils like a vinegaroon in your palm, silken menace. You kiss the spool. Bargaining never hurts. Needle plunges through leather, time, and the quiet lie that objects can't mourn. Midnight oil, already burnt. You light a candle stub, tallow from the butcher's clearance bin. 19th century slum children sold wax drippings as fairy teeth. Profit through poetry. The flame licks a smoke ring toward the patched hollow, Catherine's shadow chapel. Dawn arrives soggy and apologetic. The boot sits finished, yet unfinished. Tools nest in their drawers, temporary truce. You wring rainwater from your sleeve. Tomorrow brings the farmer. Tonight brings the weight of knowing you've stitched your soul into a stranger's stride. Your thumb pulses, a metronome set to agony. The linen thread resists, spun tight as a banker's smile. 18th century cordwainers soaked threads in beeswax for soldiers' boots, durability over comfort. You're just trying not to snap the damn thing. A blister swells, pearl of the trade, badge of honor. Gran would have said she lost 3 fingernails mending Wellington's cavalry boots. Historians still argue whether those blisters won Waterloo. You hiss as the needle bites, vengeance for doubting its flexibility. Moonlight slants through warped glass, 3 days past full. Colonial cobblers timed stitches to lunar phases, waxing for strength, waning for speed. You squint. Could have mentioned that earlier. The arch curls upward, rebel without a cause. Your awl prods the leather's memory. 13th century pilgrims hid relics in shoe soles, saintly toe jam. This phantom foot prefers practicality. You coax the curve, persuasion through percussion. Thread snaps, audible eye roll. Second attempt, catgut from the fiddle maker's discard pile. Tudor musicians used the same for lute strings and hernia repairs. Multitasking at its finest. The blister bursts, a small baptism. Salve stings like a tavern brawl. Palm readers would loathe these hands. Topography of calluses and regrets. You trace the boot's emerging silhouette. Not quite a shoe, not quite art, something truer. Night watchmen's boots contained hidden knives during the Jacobean witch hunts. Yours contains your patience. Dawn's first yawn stains the east. The arch holds barely. You press both thumbs into the hollow. English cobblers Once believed boots, shaped by firelight, held soles better. Debatable, your candle gutters, its opinion clear. A splinter embeds itself under your nail, uninvited guest. Tweezers fish it out, Victorian-era steel, pitted with age. Blame your sentimentality for keeping granddad's tools. Ottoman cobblers added henna to thread dye for blessed seams. You add whiskey to tea. Close enough. The toe box rebels, leather curling like a dead leaf. Steam rises from your kettle. You hold the boot over vapor, secret handshake with moisture. 19th century factory girls soaked leather in urine for suppleness. Modernity settles for tap water and denial. Stitch 73, or is it 93? Countings for accountants. Your thimble gleams, dented helm in a finger joust. Italian artisans swore cursing at leather made it pliant. You mutter a grocer's rhyme about turnips. Same result. Noon sun fillets the room, heat migraine in the making. You dunk your head in the rain barrel out back. Gold beaters of old worked nude to avoid linen burns. You keep your shirt, decency's last stand. Resin thickens in the pot amber scab. A dollop seals the inner seam. Your knife trims the excess, curl of fall starts. Story goes a cobbler in Marseille, waterproofed boots with crushed beetles. Clients preferred wet feet to the stench. The insole whispers under your palm, haunted by absent arches. You line it with lamb's wool, pillow for a phantom. Medieval podiatrists prescribed dried frog skins for foot aches. Progress, you suppose. Evening gnats orbit your candle, tiny acrobats. One lands on the boot's tongue. You blow it gently toward the window. 17th century nobility wore spider silk, hose that tore if you looked sideways. Delicate lives demand delicate threads. Your pinky finds the blister again, betrayed by its own grip. The needle sways, metallic cobra in slow motion. You bite the thread's end, knotting by teeth, like Tudor sailors reefing sails. Salt spray elegance, minus the scurvy. The boot's profile sharpens, a falcon's curve against the gloaming. You rotate it twice. Satisfied? No, closer. Persian rug weavers left intentional flaws to honor God's perfection. You leave a wrinkled seam offering to the patched and the patient. Crickets chorus their approval or mockery. Hard to tell. Your wrists crack as you stretch. Soundtrack of the self-employed. A French cobbler's memoir claims Napoleon's bunions swayed battle strategies. Historians still argue whether Waterloo was lost by bad boots. Team Bunyan votes yes. Midnight arrives, unpunctual as ever. The arch holds its shape. Barely. You etch initials inside the cuff, not yours, not the farmer's. Just a looping mark saying I was here. Budapest cobblers hid love notes in boot heels during wartime. Private rebellions. Stars peek through smoke-stained glass. The boot inhales, almost alive. Your blisters throb in unison, craft's cruel choir. Tomorrow brings polishing, fitting, farewells. Tonight belongs to the quiet triumph of fingers that refused to quit. The awl hovers, a bronze minnow caught between thumb and forefinger. Moonlight blurs its edge, your oil lamp down to fumes. Egyptian sandal makers used similar tools, bronze, alls honed on temple stones for sacred footwear. Yours came from a second-hand stall, still holy in its way. Leather accepts the point, less puncture than conversation. A sigh escapes the boot's lining, or maybe it's your own. Medieval cobblers whispered rhymes to soften hide, supple as a sinner's confession. You hum half-remembered lyrics, a tavern ditty about a one-eyed goat. Thread follows the awl's path, black filament against tobacco-brown leather. Your palms remember granddad's tales, how Roman roads ruined more sandals than barbarian raids. Historians still argue whether Rome fell from craggy stones or soles too thin to bear an empire. The hole deepens, crafted with surgical spite. Blistered knuckles protest. You dip the awl in neatsfoot oil. It hisses like a contented cat. 19th century surgeons borrowed cobbler's tools for battlefield amputations, another kind of repair. Midnight air sticks to your skin, syrupy and insistent. The boot's tongue lolls, spent from arguing. You press the welt damp with oil and unresolved history. A Tudor cobbler's diary claims Elizabeth I's coronation slippers screamed when punctured. Likely bullshit, but poetic. Your thumb finds a groove worn by predecessors, ancestral fingerprints in tool steel. The awl twists birth canal for new stitches. Ottoman repair manuals advised speaking encouraging words to damaged shoes. Life begins at 40 risoles, or some such. Color seeps into the east, bruise purple dawn threat. The boot's arch mocks your progress. Sistine chapel of footwear, minus the divine spark. You stab harder, awakening a splinter wedged beneath your nail. Cursing feels liturgical here. Spanish monks once punished shoemakers for profane tirades. Find them in Hail Marys and heel plates. Forgive me, Padre, this splinter's a bastard. Pliers extract the offender, tiny shiv of maple. Blood beads like garnets on the workbench. Napoleonic soldiers packed wounds with leather strips, last resort field medicine. You reach for whiskey instead, less poetic, more effective. Stitches multiply, crooked soldiers falling into line. Each loop whispers the same truth. Forgiveness requires crooked seams. Your awl slips, gouging a valley where a hill should be. So it goes. A moth kamikaze dives into the lamp, wings singed, doggedly alive. You cup it, blast furnace breath, extinguishing the flame. 17th century apprentices caught moths for luck. This one gets a free pass toward tomorrow's weak light. The boot inhales, rounder now, less broken. Your awl rests, exhausted mediator. A Viennese cobbler's guild once declared left shoes holier than right. Heresy. But maybe they'd admire your lopsided progress. Dew soaks the windowsill, tears from a pragmatic sky. You rub beeswax into the fresh stitch, sealing imperfection under amber veneer. Legend claims poisoned boots killed King Louis XIV's mistress. You doubt it. Most deaths are quieter, worn souls, broken laces, silent exits. The farmer's boot no longer wheezes, stitches holding its stories airtight. Your blisters thrum ancestral applause. Repair isn't correction. It's learning to love what refuses to die. Cockcrow shatters the silence, one arrogant reveille. You snap the thread with your teeth. Byzantium's last emperor mended his own boots during the siege final act of defiance. Yours isn't treason, just Tuesday. You wipe lamp soot from the workbench, 3 dawns sacrificed to this single seam. The boot's tongue droops, still damp from last night's linseed soak. 17th century cordwainers, they say, find members for working too slowly. You'd be bankrupt by now, yet wealthier than kings. Your needle digs where uppers meet sole, a no man's land of frayed edges. Moorish cobblers once used lion tendon for thread, flexible as sin, strong as regret. Modern polyester's cheaper, less poetic. Blame capitalism. Morning number 4. The leather finally yields, softening like a politician's campaign promise. Historians still argue whether medieval guilds controlled quality or just monopolized prices. You spit on your whetstone. Some questions answer themselves through repetition. Thread sings through the eyelet, 18 passes per inch. Ottoman apprentices believed midnight stitches brought bad luck. Hence the raccoon-eyed craftsmanship in Topkapi Palace slippers. Your own nocturnal habits feel equally cursed, yet oddly sacred. Starch-stiffened lace anchors the vamp, a geometry of pressure points. You recall Versailles, cobblers fitting Louis XV's mistresses. Their secret, silken insoles stuffed with nightingale feathers. This farmer's boot gets wool scraps, practical, if less titillating. The workbench groans under fresh knots. 5 generations of oak stained with vinegar and ancestor sweat. Victorian workhouses auctioned unclaimed boots after pauper deaths. You'd rather not dwell on that. Focus on this heel's arch. 5th sunrise finds you etching decorative scuffs, camouflaging repairs with strategic distress. Elizabethan shoe polishers added lead to their wax for deeper shine. Poisonously brilliant, much like most human ingenuity. Your thumbnail catches a burr, centuries-old lesson in shortcuts. 6th attempt at aligning the throat. The boot bucks, alligator refusing bridle. Pre-Columbian moccasins had no tongues at all, just smoke-tanned hide embracing foot. Progress isn't always improvement, merely different compromises. Your awl slips again, blood speckles the insole. Tudor cordwainers used oxblood dye to hide such sins. You let yours bloom crimson Rorschach staining dawn light. Some truths demand visibility. 3 more hours. 7 more stitches. The tongue lies flat now, docile as a shamed courtier. Dutch guilds once buried masters with their tools. You'll settle for coffee and a stale biscuit. Final wax application smothers the scars, smooth as lies told for kindness. Archaeologists found Hannibal's boots preserved in Alpine ice, stitching intact after millennia. This pair won't cross the Alps, just 40 acres of soybeans. Harvest moon peers through the window, pockmarked supervisor. You rotate the boot, checking for grudges in its posture. Medieval cobblers worked facing east at sunrise. You face survival cardinal directions be damned. The farmer's unspoken deadline hums beneath each stitch. His grandfather likely marched in these same boots through Dust Bowl droughts and Wall Street crashes. Boots don't forget, they just wait. Your pinky traces newly supple leather truce between wear and repair. 18th century Parisian shops displayed resurrection ledgers for revived footwear. This boot needs no ledger. Its second life pulses in your palms. Candlewick drowns in wax, improvised wick spent. Dawn's first trucks rumble past, modernity's impatience vibrating through your soles. You imagine the farmer's calloused, toe testing your work. Hope it fits like a whispered apology. No grand speeches, just serviceable silence. You need beeswax between palms, friction warming it to honeyed surrender. The scent hits first, sweetness cut with dust from forgotten hives. Roman soldiers lined their sandals with this same golden gum, waterproofing marches across conquered rivers. Your thumb works circles into the welt seam, pressing history into crevices. A murmur rises, not the workshop's usual creaks. Cattle lowing, auctioneers barking numbers. The boot trembles under your grip, vibrating with phantom hoofbeats. You lean closer. Coins jingle near the toe cap, invisible transactions sewn into the leather. 18th century Dutch tanners believed sweaty feet imprinted soles into shoes. You never bought it until now. A woman's laugh slices through, high and sharp as a tram bell. 14 guilders for the pair, sturdy as the dikes. The voice fades, leaving your knuckles white around the awl. The wax glows under lamplight, liquid amber, hardening into armor. Napoleon's troops allegedly polished boots with onion juice for extra shine. You stick to tradition. Bees don't ask for empire, just flowers and patience. Something crunches between molars, grit from yesterday's bread or ancient prairie dust. Your elbow bumps a jar of tacks, their clatter becomes auction hammers. Sold to the gentleman with the limp. Laughter again, the boot's sole flexes, a phantom bitter testing its metal. You reach for the bone folder, its smoothness cool against flushed skin. 19th century, brothel madams paid cobblers extra to silence squeaky heels. Priorities shift. The folder smooths the waxed edge, sealing voices beneath. A child's sob surfaces near the heel. You pause. Pennsylvania farmers once buried outgrown boots at crossroads, offerings for abundant harvests. This boot's no offering. It's a ledger. Heat builds behind your eyes, part exhaustion, part invasion. Your thumbnail picks at wax bloom, a bad habit from apprenticeship days. Mongol warriors waterproofed boots with sheep fat and urine. Be grateful for bees. The insole whispers now, a man's voice rasping numbers. 18 acres, 12 heifers mortgage due. Each digit etches itself into the arch. Historians still argue whether frontier auctions fueled growth or just legalized theft. You pour linseed oil, drowning the debate in amber silence. Daylight fractures through cobwebs, striping the boot like a prison uniform. Your spine cracks as you stretch. Victorian Street urchins sold ghost shoes looted from cemeteries. This boot's ghosts came free of charge. The wax sets, immortalizing fingerprints and echoes alike. You buff the toe cap until it shines, a dark mirror. Byzantine merchants bribed officials with boots lined in saintly relics. Yours holds simpler magic, a farmer's sweat, your own blood, and questions without answers. The workshop stills, save for the boot's faint hum. You cup its heel, a sacramental gesture. Tomorrow it'll walk dust again. Tonight, it sings of cattle decks and futures gambled for copper coins. The lantern flickers, one last whisper escaping through the eyelets. Remember, wind rattles the shutters, chasing ghosts back into their seams. You blow out the flame, letting darkness bind the wax for good. The frayed laces coil like sleeping snakes, dirt-crusted and brittle beneath your fingers. Each strand remembers flooding waters, the farmer's panicked grip, as currents swallowed the ford. Your scissors hesitate. This isn't cutting, it's archaeology. River mud particles still cling to the fibers, gritty time capsules. You read the patterns, 3 sudden tugs, where the boot nearly slipped free. 7th century Egyptian. Sandals used papyrus cords that doubled as emergency kindling. These laces chose survival instead. Cursing softly, you unwind the final knot. It resists, then unravels with a sigh. Your palm stings. A fiber splinter embeds itself. 19th Cincinnati dockworkers bragged about stolen laces surviving Niagara's rapids. You're less impressed now. Morning light bleeds through oil paper windows, guiding your knife through nettle-marinated reeds. Medieval cobblers swore full moons made weaving slippery. The fibers glide smooth regardless your hands, remembering grandmother's basket lessons. Cotton twists around reed skeletons, a lattice between strength and suppleness. Historians still argue whether Roman soldiers used shoelaces as battlefield sutures. The needle dives, stitching doubt into every cross thread. A blue jay squawks outside, its cry echoing the farmer's midstream shout, preserved in the leather. You dunk the half-formed lace in walnut dye, mud-brown camouflage for future crises. Prussian cavalry dyed reins with smashed beetles. Priorities differ when your life depends on traction. 12 loops complete, the rhythm lulls you into false security. The left lace rebels, knotting itself like a spiteful pretzel. You snort love and lace-making both demand unreasonable patience. Pine resin seals the tips, sticky defiance against future frays. Your forehead meets the workbench, cool wood-absorbing frustration. 17th century Dutch children played lace tag with stolen noblemen's cords. This game's stakes feel higher. The replacement pair hangs limp, innocent of river trials to come. You thread them slow, ritual motions from a world before zippers. Okinawan fishermen wove seaweed into stormproof laces, a fact your damp apron fails to appreciate. Final knot secured, the aglets click like distant castanets. You flex the boot, tongue shifting like a restless sleeper. Somewhere upstream, the river licks its chops, a patient predator circling repaired prey. Wind rattles drying reeds strung from the rafters, a mobile of near disasters avoided. Your pinky traces the new ladder pattern, ridges mapping, every safeguard added. Tomorrow, these cords will tighten against living skin today. They simmer in linseed oil, marinating in second chances. The old laces smolder in the forge, reeking of wet sheep and regret. Ash drifts upward, carrying river ghosts to join the workshop's haunted choir. USWEEP, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, under the bench. One more secret between you and the boot's hungry silhouette. Brushing ash from your palms, you inhale the ghost of burnt laces, carbon, and unkept promises. The knock comes soft at first, a woodpecker's mistake. Then insistent, each rap sinking, with your pulsing thumb blister. You open to a woman backlit by noon glare, a sandal dangling from her grip. Its leather strap dangles by threads, more hanging offense than footwear. Her accent curls like Phoenician trade routes, a moment's stitchwork. She pleads, pressing a silver drachma into your palm. Roman soldiers wore sandals with hobnails that sparked against cobblestones, fire hazards trailing Caesar's legions. The boot on your bench creaks, a jealous phantom. You meet her gaze, sunburned desperation under woven shawl. Historians still argue whether medieval cobblers moonlighted as tooth pullers. Right now, you'd yank molars for peace. Your thumb brushes the drachma's worn owl, Athena's wisdom gone smooth with bartering. 18th century Edinburgh criers used coins as makeshift shoehorns. This one feels heavier, weighted with roads untraveled. Tomorrow, you lie the word bending like green willow. Her sigh carries the tang of pickled melon. Byzantine travelers, preserved fruit in vinegar. She retreats, leaving her need coiled on your threshold like shed snakeskin. Locking the door feels sacrilege, but the boot's split sole gapes wider. Your all finds the groove it kissed all night partner to this half dance. Egyptian cobblers once accepted beer as payment you'd kill for a keg's distraction. Pine resin bubbles on the stove, its honeyed stench masking regret. The needle pierces fresh oxhide labor, syncopating with distant cartwheels. A joke stirs, something about cobblers' children going barefoot, but it curdles before reaching your lips. Twilight seeps through reed-thin curtains, your oil lamp sputters. You rub beeswax into the welt, friction singing hymns through your blisters. The sandal's ghost mocks from the windowsill, a one-legged sentry judging your choices. Midnight finds you carving a cedar heel block, wood shavings nesting in your sleeve cuffs. 14th century Cordoban poets compared cobblers' benches to confessionals. You murmur half prayers to the blade, seek forgiveness for mercies withheld. A moth batters the lamp chimney, its shadow flailing across the boot's revitalized arch. Historians still argue whether Napoleon's cobbler added hidden lifts to his boots. You add a whisper of elevation, unseen defiance against unforgiving soil. Dew seeps under the door, clammy kisses on your ankles. The repaired sole gleams, drenched in linseed and borrowed moonlight. Somewhere beyond your workshop, a traveler's bare foot meets a pebbled road, and a silver drachma buys no comfort. The boot leers from its perch toe cap, polished to judgmental sheen. You press both palms to its instep, sweat and varnish mingling. Dawn inches closer, your unpaid work sprawls across hours like unspooled thread. Your last stitch bites deep, a love letter in catgut. The lamp dies its final smoke, curling into the shape of a sandal. You smile tiredly, honors a slippery beast, but the moon makes faithful company. The tannery's tang bites your throat, vinegar and oak gall brewed to a devil's perfume. You drag the scraper across soaked hide, flesh side up, just like father taught. Medieval tanners soaked leather in urine vats, human preferred for that luxurious suppleness. Your eyes water, whether from memory or ammonia, hard to tell. His ghost leans over your shoulder, callous, leading blade in that crooked way of his. You flinch, half expecting the cuff to your ear for some invisible mistake. Measure twice, cut once, but love recklessly echoes through the workshop. Historians still argue whether Venetian leather guilds permitted women members. The debate feels academic, rough hands care little for ledgers. A woodpecker staccato drills the roof, or is that father's knuckle testing your stitches? You press closer to the workbench, splinters snagging your apron. 19th century Parisian cordwainers stuffed shoes with arsenic-laced paper to deter moths. You take moths over this spectral jury any day. The leather curls, a parchment scroll of sins. Your knife nicks a thumb webbing old pain in a new trench. Father's laughter rumbles, the sound of carts over cobblestones. He'd line his boots with dried sphagnum moss for insulation, quicker than buying wool. You never asked where he learned that trick. Dust motes swirl in a sunbeam, brief galaxies between your aching fingers that smell rotten eggs, and wet bark clings like a jealous lover. Renaissance cobblers added ground glass to dye for star-spangled boots. Yours lacks sparkle, but it'll outlast the farmer's stubborn pride. A wasp batters the window, obsessed with its own reflection. You hum the tune father whistled while burnishing souls, a drinking song turned lullaby. The awl slips, plowing a furrow across your thumbnail, blood beads darker than oxblood polish and strangely comforting. Night falls, your lamp paints giants on the walls. The half-scraped hide stiffens, accusatory as a slapped cheek. Father's ghost retreats into the scent, fainter now, with each whetstone pass. Some claim Assyrian sandals had toe compartments for hidden poison. You'd settle for a compartment storing this ache. The farmer's boot watches from its shelf, a silent chaperone. Your breath fogs the scraping blade, momentary eclipse. They say Catherine de' Medici popularized high heels to appear taller. You add no lifts, just honest patches over honest wear. Dawn bleeds through oil paper windows, staining your hands the color of guilt. The tannery stench fades, replaced by beeswax and your own sour sweat. Father's voice whispers once more, not in words, but in the surety of blade meeting grain. You carve the final trim, sending curls of leather skyward, confetti for ghosts. You peel back the insole, its edges brittle as autumn leaves and freeze. Creases fan outward, topographic lines charting a lifetime's wandering. Hills rise where the farmer's arch pressed hardest, valleys dip at the ball, a terrain worn by 10,000 pivots in muddy fields. Your thumb traces a canyon along the heel deeper than the 5,500-year-old shoe found in that Armenian cave. Beeswax candles gutter as you tilt the boot, shadows deepening the geography. Romans hammered hobnails into soles to spell crude jokes, legionnaires chuckling over hidden vulgarities. No nails here, just the soft archaeology of labor. You brush away lining fragments, century-old dust peppers your wrist. The map resists flatness, curling upward like parchment held to fire. Historians still argue whether Roman sandal grooves served traction or just showed off legionnaires' marching counts. You press a damp cloth to stubborn leather, steam rising like ghostly mountain mist. North might be that cluster of worn dimples, or perhaps the cracked plateau near the toe. Pumice stone rasps against high ground, smoothing without erasing. Your knife follows a ravine's path, trimming rot while preserving the story's banks. 18th century nuns in Marseille repaired shoes with communion wafer paste. You opt for fish glue, less holy, but better for traction. Sunlight shifts, the creases, shadows stretch into afternoon. That kidney-shaped depression. A decade of lifting the same milk pail. The shallow scoop near the instep. Endless hours stooped over blighted crops. You inhale sweat-stained narratives, pungent as Pickman's 1893 treatise on Cobbler's lung. Threadbare patches glow under your loop, weave patterns echoing Babylonian reed sandals. Your all hesitates to darn is to rewrite history. Ottoman shoemakers believed worn soles trapped fragments of their wearers' prayers. You stitch minimally, preserving the original text. Night arrives uninvited, workbench oil lamps casting expeditionary shadows. Curious how calluses mirror the land they work, the farmer's thickened skin, and his boots' thickened leather, singing the same coarse hymn. You daub dye into a ravine's raw edges, ochre to match distant cliffs in Navajo Canyonlands. Moth wings tickle your ear, the same species that plagued Napoleon's Moscow boots. You wave it off. No arsenic-laced linings here, just honest decay. The insole's eastern frontier still holds mysteries, a pucker resembling a river fork, or perhaps the scar from a jealous plowshare. Dawn finds you rubbing soot into contour lines, heightening the relief. Pompeian cobblers displayed shoe molds outside shops like menu boards. You prefer this private cartography, a testament worn smooth by secrets. The leather accepts your revisions, new peaks forming where mend meets original flesh. When you finally resettle the insole, it clicks, a puzzle box sealing its coded chronicle. Somewhere, the Armenian wind howls through that ancient shoe's cave. Here, your farmer walks through marrow-deep geographies, etched in sweat and fibrous strata. You coat the terrain in mutton tallow gloss for the next 10,000 steps. The boot stands renewed, its map intact beneath fresh layers. Future blisters will bloom where old calluses lie buried, layers upon layers of stories waiting to be peeled. You blow out the candles, the smell of molten wax blending with remembered loam. The mold blooms overnight, velvety constellations spotting the boot's sheepskin lining. You lean closer, greenish-black galaxies spreading where sweat met shadow. 17th century tanners used vinegar-soaked rags to fight rot. You reach for distilled white, pouring salvation into a chipped saucer. Cotton swabs become time machines, each swipe erasing modernity. Beneath the blight, the lining still smells of lanolin and long-gone pastures. A spore cloud puffs upward, your nose wrinkles at the musk of forgotten summers. Ottoman saddle makers once mixed gecko blood into mold treatments. You stick to baking soda, less medieval, fewer reptilian ethics. Daylight betrays your progress. New blooms emerge near the heel counter. Your nail brushes a speckled patch. It crumbles like Pharaoh Senusrit, I's desiccated sandals. Historians still argue whether Nile flood molds helped preserve royal footwear or just made them stink less. The debate lingers as you mix tea tree oil and honey, nature's harsh whisper antibiotics. Peppermint scent cuts through the decay, a June breeze in a February workshop. You hum while dabbing remedy into leather pores, the same tuneless song your aunt sang when preserving peaches. Rot fights back, a malachite streak resurfaces near the toe box. Your teeth find your lower lip pressure mounting like Burgundian monks, determining penitence grades for wet boots. Brass tweezers pluck a fuzzy intruder, its roots cling like lovers. Under magnification, the filaments writhe, microscopic dendrites mapping doomed campaigns. Napoleon's troops allegedly used boot mold as wound dressing. You doubt their surgeons kept notes on efficacy. Something shifts. A pale shoot unfurls from a spore's grave. Tenderness swells in your throat, life hijacking decay's banquet. 1784 French clogs reportedly sprouted wheat from their soles during famine. You trim the sprout with embroidery scissors, blade flashing like a miniature scythe. Nightfall brings surrenders. The remaining mold retreats to crevices. You press chamois cloth against damp leather, blotting weakness from the flesh. Victorian cobblers believed lingering rot attracted poltergeists. Your workshop needs no added ghosts. The boot's memories already crowd the rafters. Dawn reveals a truce, healthy hide outflanking spoiled patches. You burn sassafras twigs for clarity, sweet smoke curling around the boot's ankle. Cherokee tanners used similar smudging rituals, their wisdom archived in bark and ashes. The mold's final stronghold collapses under a borax, paste assault, chalky surrender on your stained fingertips. When you oil the salvaged lining, it sighs, resilience exhaling through repaired pores. Rot and remedy now share the same bloodstream, symbiosis forged through your stubborn care. Somewhere, Senusrit's sandals continue crumbling, their caretakers long turned to dust. Here, your farmer's boot breathes anew, scars, and sprouts singing harmony under mendied leather. You buff the interior until it gleams, a battlefield turned memorial garden. Future feet will never know this secret war, only the comfort of dry, sweet-smelling strides. The cotton swab dries behind your ear, its stained tip whispering psalms for the vanquished and the saved. The anvil greets your palms cold, its pitted face still holding sunrise's weak warmth. You fold the boot's quarter over the horn, leather protesting, like a drowsy cat being rearranged. 9th century Norse smiths forged their anvils from ship nails, each blow echoing oceanic voyages. Your hammer arcs downward, iron singing against iron a chord that rattles molars and memories. Dents yield slowly, the leather's memory fighting your corrections. Each strike leaves concentric ripples, moon craters in miniature. Renaissance cobblers allegedly bribed blacksmiths for time on their anvils, begging the iron's blessing. You whisper a market day rhyme instead, nonsense verses to soften the leather's pride. Mid-swing, the hammer slips. Your thumb meets unforgiving steel, a blue note in the workshop symphony. Victorian work songs bubble up lyrics about sweethearts and swollen joints. You suck the throbbing digit, taste copper and yesterday's walnut dye. The boot remains impassive, judge and jury in its own trial. Sunlight glints off the anvil's one smooth patch where centuries of tools bit down. You press a heated awl into stubborn creases, burnt hair, stink mingling with beeswax. Atinian monks claimed sleeping near anvils cured weak ankles. Your knees disagree as you crouch, a geological age fossilizing in your joints. A hidden rivet sparks cleaving air like St. Elmo's fire. You blink away after images, retinas branded with fleeting constellations. The boot's toe cap finally lies flush, a grudging truce between form and function. Historians still argue whether Damascus anvils produced superior footwear or just louder smiths. You vote for volume, the workshop thrums with stubborn ghosts. Lunch breaks the rhythm cheese and bread atop your tool chest. The anvil watches, silent creditor demanding your return. You flick crumbs at its shadow, a petty rebellion that lands in rust flakes. 1734 French Guild records list 7 anvils named Mathilda, though whether lovers or tools remains unclear. Twilight transforms the dance. Each hammer striking fireflies from the steel. Your palms host fresh blisters, bubbles of dedication. The boot's arch rises proud now, rebuilding what rains and ruts had stolen. When sweat blurs your vision, you swear the anvil hums. Or maybe that's just blood rushing past eardrums. Final strokes come softer, taps whispered along the welt. You run fingertips over cooled leather reading braille left by vanished hammers. The anvil stays mute content now that its song lives in another's hands. Somewhere beneath your calluses, blacksmith DNA stirs, then yawns, then sleeps. The harvest moon glares through your workshop window, a swollen pumpkin ready to burst. You count stitches by its light, 97, 98, each knot syncing with cricket song from the fields. 17th century farmers timed grain harvests to its glow extra hours, reaping before rot set in. Your needle dives, thread snags, a rebellion against haste. Leather protests as you stretch the vamp, its tired fibers remembering older moons. Country folk swore cobblers stitched faster under this light, claimed the moon plumped cowhide like rising dough. The boot's toe box resists. You soften it with vinegar and curses. Blisters on your fingertips pulse, 8 tiny satellites orbiting wounded flesh. A corn husk scrap blows through the door, crisp and sweet-smelling. You tuck it under the workbench. Maybe the boot needs farmland musk in its seams. Historians still argue whether lunar phases actually affected harvest yields or just farmers' patience. Your knuckles brush the awl's handle, still warm from yesterday's quarrel with the heel. Midnight trickles in molasses thick as you burnish the counterpocket. R a G Chinese letter, S rhythmically, a cricket conductor leading your tired hands. Pre-industrial tanners used cow brains for softening hides, an enzyme trick modern science can't fully replicate. You opt for neatsfoot oil instead, its amber gleam pooling in welt grooves. 2 crows squabble on your windowsill, their debate over a wheat stalk turning philosophical. You flick a wax pellet, watch them scatter like burnt thread ends. The boot's arch curves proud now, a bridge between mud and dignity. Sweat drips onto the insole, each bead writing salt signatures on leather. Your stomach growls, a feral counterpart to the moon's luminous glare. Medieval cobblers supposedly nibbled leather scraps during deadlines, a protein hack you thankfully ignore. The last eyelet winks copper bright, inviting a lace you haven't cut yet. Dawn's first bruise colors the horizon, indigo seeping into black. You bite off the final thread, a bitter taste of hemp and resolve. Somewhere beyond your aching shoulders, combines crawl through fields, greedy for what autumn hoards. The boot sits completed, yet unfinished, waiting for footfalls to justify its resurrection. A breeze sweeps in carrying the tang of upturned soil. You press an ear to the boot's sole, half expecting to hear roots whispering upward. The harvest won't wait, but neither will the mend. You wrap the work in muslin anyway. Time stretches thin, taut as waxed thread, as moonlight and daylight wage their oldest war. Walnut shells crack beneath your hammer, their green-black innards oozing onto the stone slab. 17th century dyers prized these hulls, cheaper than cochineal beetles, kinder than iron vitriol. You mash the pulp, fingers staining purple, the tang of earth and tannin sharp in your nose. Some old-timers swore piss worked better than vinegar for fixing dye. You'll take their word for it. The boot's gashes glare up, jagged reminders of flint and hardscrabble fields. Your brush hovers, hoverflies darting around the dye pot's rim. Tomorrow's rain might dilute the stain, but hesitation smells worse than walnut rot. First stroke, the leather drinks deep, gulping down centuries of arboreal patience. Crisp air nips your wrists, a warning of frosts, yet unnamed. You hum tunelessly, same pitch as the dye vat's lazy bubbles. Historians still argue whether medieval cobblers used color coding, marking, repairs for princes versus paupers. Your bristles find every scar, each gash, reborn as shadowed topography. A woodlouse ambles across the workbench, armored pilgrim, seeking safer ground. You flick it toward the window, your version of mercy. The stain deepens, richer, where the leather's most wounded, nature's chiaroscuro on a farmer's canvas. Memories surface, your apprentice years staining gloves for some count's ridiculous hunt. Left index finger still bears a walnut crescent, faded badge of clumsy ambition. This work feels cleaner, no pretense, just honest where made honorable. Dusk arrives uninvited, dragging its indigo cloak across your tools. You light a tallow candle wick, sputtering like a displeased badger. 3 layers applied, each drying tacky sweet, before the wax sealant kisses the grain. Night birds chorus as you buff the vamp, friction-born warmth radiating through the cloth. The boot glows now, not with nouveau sheen, but the luster of an old knife well-oiled. Somewhere beyond the hills, the farmer's plow parts the same soil that wounded this leather. Your back protests as you stand, vertebrae popping like a misfired crossbow. The stain pot sits empty, its dregs whispering of next season's walnut harvest. Tomorrow the boot returns home, carrying both its injuries and the quiet grace of survival. Your awl slips, blade kissing rust instead of brass. The eyelet glares up, corroded mercenary refusing retirement. You flex your stinging palm, blood wells where metal teeth bit deep. Dark droplets mingle with orange decay, sacrifice accepted by the workshop gods. Brass rings haunt cobblers' nightmares since Roman times. Legionaries' sandals needed laces tight enough to march across empires. Your pliers grip the rebel eyelet, metal groaning like a stubborn mule. Some swear vinegar softens rust better than new crucible steel. You prefer brute force and muttered curses. Midnight's chill hugs your shoulders as the ring pops free, its victory short-lived. You examine the wound, twin crescents blooming on your lifeline. Historians still argue whether imperial cobblers filed their tools with crushed ruby, dust, madness, or marketing. Your whetstone's mundane song rasps through the dark, honest grit over jeweled pretension. The replacement eyelet hides in your apron's coin pocket, smooth and smug. You press it home, cool brass whispering promises it won't keep. Blood smears the alloy, your fingerprints etched into its polished surface. Downstairs, the tavern clock clangs twice, a drunkard's hymn to poor decisions. Memories flicker, that traveling tinker who swore lion fat, waterproofed leather best. You'd laughed till he showed a Mogul emperor's riding boot, still supple after 3 centuries. The farmer's boot needs no royal treatments, just honest brass that knows its place. Rust flakes drift onto the workbench fairy dust for the terminally pragmatic. You sweep them into a tin. Riflemen once used the stuff to foul enemy gunpowder. The boot's throat yawns, fresh eyelet gleaming like a traitor's new allegiance. Your needlepoint probe finds hidden corrosion, invisible tumors eating leather from within. A moth batters the lantern, its wings leaving ghostly imprints in the tallow smoke. You carve away rotten flesh, scalpel parting fibers with surgical contempt. The patched void demands a reinforcement patch, shape matching the stain's contours. Your scissors snip doeskin remnants, templates drawn by muscle memory. Victorian doctors prescribed leather shavings for anemia. You wonder if anyone actually swallowed the damn things. Hide glue bubbles on the brazier, its stench chasing away nostalgia. You paint the cavity, amber ooze sealing past and present. Heat shimmers warp the air, or maybe exhaustion's playing tricks. 2 rivets anchor the graft, a process unchanged since cordwainers' guilds ruled Europe. Blood dries sticky on your thumb, nature's own adhesive. The boot seems heavier now, sated on iron and effort. Outside, a barn owl screeches, the same sound crusaders attributed to demonic tailors. You shake your head, mythology clings to leather as stubbornly as cat hair. Dawn's first blush stains the eastern sky, watercolor wash over your failure to sleep. The eyelet winks in newborn light, its rebellion quashed, its purpose resurrected. You wipe away midnight's labors, streaks of rust and blood merging into a single testament. The farmer's boot stands ready, one silent revolution, forever etched into its throat. Your hands ache penance for outsmarting decay. Somewhere beyond the village, a blacksmith's hammer strikes anvil, echoing your own unfinished war against entropy. Tallow pools solidify, waxy tributaries mapping yesterday's toil. You flex your stiffened fingers, the cut already healing. Cobbler's blood holds no magic, just salt and stubbornness. The workshop door creaks, inviting morning's scrutiny. Let it come. The thimble clings to your thumb, a brass fortress against needlepoint sieges. Midnight frost etches fern patterns on the workshop window. Jack Frost's lazy forgery of Damascus steel. Your palm throbs where yesterday's rustbit drew blood. Proof, even tools grow teeth when neglected. You dip the thimble into beeswax. Centuries of cobblers whisper through its dents. 18th century apprentices wore these caps backwards during initiations, a mute rebuke to clumsy fingers. The wax cools instantly, preserving mistakes better than any confession. 3 stitches rebel against your rhythm, loops slack as drunkards' suspenders. You reposition the thimble. Crusaders once sewn their own sandals mid-march, their thimbles doubling as crucifix pendants. Historians still argue whether medieval cobblers used staghorn rings before brass conquered Europe. Your own cap bears Egyptian lotus motifs, a Cairo pawnshop relic sold as Cleopatra's toenail protector. Leather groans under the awl, your chapel bell calling you to prayer. Each puncture echoes Mongol saddle makers punching holes in horse-lord regalia, worlds and centuries dissolving beneath repetitive motion. The farmer's boot accepts 7 new stitches, pilgrims kneeling at the altar of practicality. Moth wings flutter against the kerosene lamp, living parchment threatening to immolate itself. You trap the intruder under an empty dye jar, its shadow magnified into pterodactyl proportions. Victorian card sharks hid marked decks in hollowed thimbles, fingertip cheating elevated to jewelry. Your own cap remains honest, if occasionally complicit in hiding bloodstains. Thread pulls taut, a highwayer between order and chaos. You knot it with sailor's precision. Nautical cobblers once repaired boots lashed to storm-tossed decks. Waxed linen bites into your index finger, the thimble's ridge offering meager defense. Some craftsmen swear by silver thimbles for purer stitching. You'll take battered brass over aristocratic pretense. The boot's tongue sags, leather in need of sacramental wine. You trickle neatsfoot oil along its creases, a priest anointing calloused feet. Blisters form beneath your thimble, holy stigmata for the church of elbow grease. Factory girls during the Industrial Revolution developed thimble-shaped calluses, nature's cruel parody of protective gear. Outside, an icicle shatters, crystalline shrapnel peppering the frozen mud. You realign the insole Turkish cobblers, embedded rosewater capsules here to mask foot odor. Your version uses cedar shavings, humility over decadence. The thimble warms against your skin, decades of friction, conjuring phantom heat. Starlight bleeds through cloud cover, celestial cobblers patching heaven's worn soles. You snap the thread with your teeth, a bad habit your first master tried to beat out of you. The boot exhales, its wounds sutured, but not forgotten. 3 a.m. mythologies take hold. What if thimbles channel dead craftsmen's skills? You flex your aching hand. No spirit guides here, just overworked tendons. A church bell tolls the hour, sound waves carrying Luther's cobblers, mending papal boots in 1521. The workbench holds its breath. Half-moon stains from teacups, past judging your progress. You buff the heel counter. French revolutionaries hid messages in boot seams, their thimbles clicking revolutionary anthems. Your own rhythms favor work songs, dirges for blistered hands, and dwindling lamp oil. First, snowflakes kiss the window, melting before they can pattern the glass. You rub tallow into the sole. Napoleon's army marched on similar grease. Their cobbler saints canonized by frostbite. The thimble slips, brass meeting hardwood with a heretic's clang. Dawn remains hours away, plenty of time to debate whether Roman sandal makers used toe thimbles. You retrieve the cap, its embossed lotuses worn smooth by generations. O.F. Chinese letter hands. The boot's arches rise like cathedral vaults, testament to holy repetition. Your knife trims excess thread, severed ends falling into the relics jar, beside sheared rivets and widow's buttons. Someone will toss them eventually, or maybe they'll outlive the workshop itself. The thimble gleams in lamplight, a tiny pope blessing your fingerprints. You slide it off, skin underneath pale as communion wafer. Somewhere a rooster mocks the hour, feathered apostate to the night's silent liturgy. Blood toughens into makeshift armor beneath your thumbnail, nature's own reinforcement patch. The farmer's boot stands sentinel scars waxed, and whispering secrets only roads will hear. You press the thimble into fresh daub, marking territory like a bishop sealing a decree. Cold creeps into your knuckles, December's venom slowing salvation. You blow on stiffened fingers, breath fog becoming the ghost of finished labor. Tomorrow's blisters stir beneath your skin, congregants awaiting their fiery sermon. Footsteps crunch frozen grass outside, maybe the farmer checking progress, maybe death come for a soul measurement. You keep stitching. What's one more shadow in the chapel of perpetually unfinished work? Lantern flame shrinks to a blue nib, cold star devouring its own light. You guide the final stitch by touch, eyes closed to better feel the leather's confession. The thimble falls silent, its heresies complete. The kiln breath wind slams your workshop, glue pots bubble like volcanic mudpits. You throw your body over the boot, human shield against nature's bad temper. 1722, Moroccan caravans abandoned entire leather shipments in similar heat, whole economies left to warp under the sun. Your forearm sizzles where glue spatters, instant brand marks to match the boot's scars. Ever heard of Persian glue-cooling flutes? 9th century artisans blew through hollow reeds to save their adhesives, mad genius or desperate pantomime. The soul peels back its fresh bond, a lover's quarrel between chemistry and climate. You pin it down with a brick from Hadrian's wall, salvaged rubble repurposed for quieter wars. Historians still argue whether Roman cobblers worked naked during heat waves. The image alone could rewrite archaeology textbooks. Sweat drips onto the insole, each drop hissing ruin as it hits. You retaliate with linen strips soaked in well water, desert tactics stolen from Bedouin bookbinders. The boot's toe cap warps upward, sardonic smile mocking your sweat-drenched efforts. 3 emergency stitches later, You're half cobbler, half octopus limbs, anchoring every vulnerable seam. That fresh mountain air people romanticize turns out it's 90% betrayal. You trade sarcasm with the elements. What's one more apocalypse delayed by stubbornness? By twilight, the glue surrenders not cooled, just too exhausted to fight. The boot lies intact beneath you, conquest written in blisters and warped floorboards. Some victories leave both parties too tired to gloat. The door creaks, its protest drowned by the wail of wind-torn shutters. She stands there, apron dusted with flour, knuckles red from kneading, holding bread wrapped in cloth older than your tools. The scent hits before she speaks, yeast's earthy tang wrestling leather's bitterness into something holy. You take the loaf, its heat seeping into your palms, and breathe. 14th century bakers faced execution for underweight loaves, a fact that suddenly justifies the weight crushing your calluses. Her nod says everything, two laborers trading silent recognitions. The bread's crust crackles, a language older than Latin. Historians still argue whether Charlemagne's bakers added ground oyster shells to flour, wisdom, or wartime desperation. You bite into the heel of the loaf, steam escaping like a secret. 11 villages over, they whisper about bread spun from nettles and spite during the great frost. This tastes simpler barley and persistence. She gestures at your workbench, the boot now facing its final vigil. Her fingers brush the repaired sole, a bridge between grain and hide. You half expect her to comment, but she wipes flour fingerprints on her skirts instead. One of King Louis' mistresses allegedly wore boots lined with risen dough, court cobbler's folly, or fertility symbol. The workshop's air thickens, leavened sweat and cedar resin. As she leaves, a crumb trail marks her exit, ant highway rewrite. Her shadow mingles with yours on the floorboards, brief communion of bent spines. You shove bread into your mouth like a starved scribe, flakes snowing onto waxed thread. 30 generations of farmers' wives perfected this recipe, each loaf a census of silent mornings. By the third bite, you're mapping grain silos in your teeth. The boot watches, jealous of such easy nourishment. You offer it a crumb's paltry sacrifice to the leather gods. Wind sneaks back in scattering flour across your work like blasphemous snow. Your laugh startles a spider off its web, 8-legged critic fleeing the scene. Night folds over the village as you chew. Somewhere, her oven cools, its bricks whispering tales of 37 harvests. The bread's last warmth fades, but its ghost lingers in the leather's pores. You wipe butter grease on your apron, holy oil for profane hands. Tomorrow, the farmer returns. Tonight, starch and rawhide conspire in your gut, unseen alliance of menders and feeders. The boot's laces glow pale in moonlight, string theory of rural survival. You lick salt from your thumb, final sacrament, before sleep claims its due. The needle trembles, a divining rod seeking truth in leather's creases. Your thumb finds the groove worn by 13 years of similar nights, callus meeting callus. Medieval cobblers worked barefoot to better feel their stitches, a fact that now explains your aching arches. Thread snakes through the eye, one last pilgrimage from waxed strand to cracked sole. You pull. The tension writes its own history. 18th century sailors called this the widow's knot, 2 loops guaranteeing safe return. Historians still argue whether the name mourned drowned men or celebrated stubborn hope. The leather resists, then yields with a sigh older than your grandfather's anvil. Outside, an owl hoots 3 times, feathered critic passing judgment. Your candle drips, wax onto a half-eaten crust, bread fossilizing into amber. That baker's wife would have scowled at the waste. 18th century Parisian guilds find members for working past midnight. But your village moon charges no tariffs. The knot tightens, your fingerprint pressed into waxed linen forever. Some say Napoleon's cobbler hid battle plans in boot heels, though you'd bet silver it was love letters. Your awl rests, its beak glistening with residual defiance. Dawn licks the workshop's eastern window, a hungry cat testing milk. The boot sits transformed, not reborn, but reconciled. Cobblers in Edo period Japan buried worn tools under shrines. You settle for placing your needle in a walnut shell. Your knuckle bleeds where the thread bit stain blooming like watered ink. In Cornwall, they say a cobbler's bloodstain ensures 10 years' luck. The boot's tongue lies smooth now, all arguments between leather and linen settled. You step back, hips cracking like kindling. 3 spiders descend from the rafters. Inspect your work. Retreat satisfied. 19th century factories tried replacing craftsmen with steam-powered stitchers, machines now rusting in museums. The last wax seal shines, a tiny moon clasping the welt. There's a monastery in Sardinia where monks still chew leather to soften it, their teeth marks blessed as holy sigils. You rub beeswax across the toe cap, turning blisters into constellations. Wind rattles the door its time. You place the boot center stage on your workbench, soul-kissed by first light. Somewhere the farmer buttons his shirt, 2 sleeves, 2 boots, 1 debt about to be repaid. Your stomach growls both joke and indictment. The bread's ghost haunts your tongue yeast and salt, and someone else's dawn vigil. You sip cold tea, dregs swirling like the Mississippi mud that birthed this leather. A child's laughter skips through the wall, innocent counterpoint to your exhaustion. 8 generations of your family's tools watch from shadowed shelves, jury of ancestors rendered in rust and oak. You blow out the candle scent of burnt wick, masking the workshop's musk. The boot leans slightly companionable tilt, like old friends sharing a secret. Sunlight climbs its heel gold leaf on a reliquary. Footsteps approach, gravel crunching under familiar weight. You touch the boot's throat where foot meets sole and whisper the cobbler's benediction. Let it hold. Let it last. Let it carry. The hawk's feather catches sunlight, slanting through your workshop, amber veins glowing like cathedral glass. Your knife hesitates above the boot's cuff, one twitch, and it becomes art. 18th century Milanese cobblers stitched gold thread into noblemen's shoes, their guild charter specifically forbidding decoration sans permission. The blade's edge kisses, leather stops. You inhale resin-scented air, thick with the moral calculus of embellishment. That Persian merchant last winter offered rubies for boot caps, his mule laden with stones that blinked like reptilian eyes. Your all lies dormant, judging from its brass spine. Historians still argue whether the bejeweled sandals found in Tutankhamun's tomb were ceremonial or functional. Dead kings care little for blisters. 3 workshop ghosts materialize, your great-uncle's phantom cough, the vinegar tang of his disapproval. He once sewed pearls into a duchess's slippers and got paid in wilted roses. The feather trembles, its quill sharp enough to pierce your self-restraint. Outside, a cartwheel squeals reality's reminder. You count heartbeats instead of stitches, 11 thumps before logic drowns out temptation. Stains bloom across the boot's toe, where walnut dye settled bruise maps of honorable service. Egyptian cobblers used crushed beetle wings for shimmer, their clients' feet glowing like swamp fireflies. Your fingernail traces the feather's spine barbules catching on calluses. One swift motion would bond raptor to farmer, sky to soil, but the boot's scars form their own hieroglyphs, split seams as lunar phases, scuffs as cattle brands. The workshop clock wheezes, a death rattle from its lead weights. You bury the feather in your apron pocket, fletching tickling thigh through the fabric. 19th century, Edinburgh had a cobbler who tattooed tiny poems inside boot linings. His clients never noticed until their socks bled ink. Wind slaps the window, a reprimand from the practical gods. You rub beeswax over the cuff's raw edge. Instead, friction generating guilty heat. That Florentine shoemaker's memoir whispers through your mind. Adornment is apology for poor craft. The boot needs no apology. Your water cup sweats rings onto the workbench temporary halos. 4 warblers flock to the windowsill, feathered jury, assessing your restraint. Their chirps sound suspiciously like sellout. Prussian cavalry boots once had hidden compartments for lockpicks and love notes, function masquerading as frivolity. The farmer's shadow darkens your doorway, a silhouette crowned with a battered hat. You press both palms flat against the workbench, anchoring yourself to the ethics of repair. His gaze falls on the boot, not the feather's absence. When he lifts it, sunlight stripes the leather, years of creases, suddenly chiaroscuro. His thumb brushes where the embellishment nearly happened, a phantom caress. Maybe he senses the road not taken, the avian ghost in the threadwork. You bite your tongue until copper floods saliva, penance, and punctuation. He mutters thanks, that's 3 parts relief, 1 part shame. The boot's absence leaves a void on your bench, negative space, shaped like a heart. After he leaves, you extract the feather, its edges frayed from confinement. Some Navajo craftsmen weave eagle plumes into moccasins for spiritual journeys, but your journey stays earthbound. The kiln devours the feather in one blue gasp, sending ambitions skyward as acrid smoke. Dust motes swirl where flames flared, final audience to your tantrum. Your hammer lies cold its face, reflecting your own stretched thin. Tomorrow brings another repair, another dance, with restraint's sharp music. The empty workbench creaks, a hungry stomach. You lick beeswax from your knuckle sweetness, with bitter aftertastes. Night's first stars blink awake, celestial cobblers driving silver nails into dusk's leather. The brush's horsehair bristles scratch leather like 1,000 tiny prayers, your arm moving in monastic rhythm. Victorian cobblers swore by boar's bladder oil for shine. You settle for linseed and elbow grease. Each stroke clarifies the toe cap's story, scuff marks resolving into cattle drives and stubborn clods. A bluetit lands on your windowsill, its head cocked at the boot's reflection. 17th century German tanners believed birdsong softened leather, hence the lark's cadence paid double. You hum Bach's cello, sweet no, one wrong century, but the boot seems to approve. The polish rag snags on a hidden dent, your thumbnail follows its contours. Historians still argue whether Roman soldiers buffed their boots for status or survival. Grit sticks to pride differently. 3 passes with the brush turn the indentation into a topographical wink, a valley carved by honest miles. Your reflection warps in the toe cap, nose elongated, eyes black pits. A giggle escapes, then dies. 16th century Venetian ladies used boot polish as mascara, their lashes gleaming with cobbled midnight. You resist testing the theory barely. Sunlight shifts. The boot's silhouette becomes a charcoal sketch on your bench. French revolutionaries hid manifestos in hollowed heels, their cobbler collaborators executed with their awls still strapped to belts. Your knuckle taps the sole, a hollow thunk from yesterday's repairs. No sedition here, just that pressed flower's ghost. The brush handle blisters your palm. You wrap it with your grandmother's embroidered handkerchief. Prussian officers once dueled over polish recipes. A lieutenant bled out, clutching a tin of beeswax blend. The toe cap drinks in another layer, its pores closing like satisfied mouths. You rotate the boot, heel to instep, searching for missed patches. A 1920s Montreal cobbler claimed to read clients' fates in scuff patterns, divined a widow's lottery win from a hobnail constellation. Your client's boot shows only fatigue and fidelity, a horoscope of labor. The smell assaults you linseed and memory. Your father's workshop reeked of neatsfoot oil. You trace his initials in the condensation while he worked. The brush slows, bristles flexing like a pilgrim's bowed spine. Blowing dust from the welt, you uncover a fleck of mica, earth's stubborn glitter. Medieval pilgrims embedded holy relics in their souls, sainted toe bones grinding into European mud. This sparkle needs no veneration, just a gentle wipe with your sleeve. The farmer's boot becomes a dark mirror, clouds swimming across its surface. Dutch children once believed polished shoes trapped sunset light for night walks, their cobblestone streets echoing with manufactured dusk. You lift it to your ear, hear nothing but your own pulse. Calluses catch on the waxed laces, your fingerprints erased by repetitions. An 1800s Oregon Trail diary mentions boots polished with rattlesnake fat, protection against prairie melancholia. You massage lanolin into the tongue, its creases sighing into suppleness. 3 knocks startle you, the postman, bearing a box of rivets. His eyes linger on the boot, looks fit for a king's coronation. You shrug. Kings don't break in new blisters during harvest. Alone again, you attack the heel counter, bristles bending at 45 degrees. Edwardian etiquette demanded separate brushes for left and right boots, a formality you've always deemed morbid. The brush sneezes dust, a miniature sirocco across your workbench. Twilight arrives uninvited, pink fingers smudging the workshop's oil lamps. You light one, its flame duplicating in the toe cap's curve, a final pass with the rag muscle memory surpassing intention. The boot glows now, not the cloying shine of novelty, but the patina of survival. You set it down gently, a relic reanimated. Somewhere, Pharaoh's sandals gather museum dust, their gilded edges never tasting honest mud. Your lower back protests as you stand, a complaint as old as Cobbler's stoop. The boot watches from its perch patient as a carved saint. Outside, a donkey brays time to deliver what's been remade. The brush rests in its jar, bristles splayed like a captured sunburst. You blow out the lamp, the boot's afterimage lingers on your retina. Tomorrow, another cracked sole will land here, begging transformation. For now, this one waits, its laces coiled like questions. You lock the workshop door, wood groaning in its frame. The path home feels softer beneath your feet, polished, perhaps, by unseen hands. Dawn bleeds through the workshop's warped glass, liquid gold pooling around the boots, restored toe cap. Your breath fogs the leather as you lift it, cold from a night alone with the rafters creaks. 18th century London cobblers burned juniper at dawn to bless finished work. You settle for black tea steam curling from your chipped mug. The boot's heel catches the light, a crescent moon forged from resurrected leather. Medieval guilds sometimes sewed silver threads into soles, a hidden offering to roadside ghosts. Your needle carried only hemp and spite, yet the seams hold a whisper of devotion. Your pinky traces the welt, that stubborn ridge refusing full alignment. Historians still argue whether Appalachian bootmakers coded messages in their stitch patterns. Local moonshine ciphers against prohibition. This one speaks in blisters and silence, a manifesto of necessity over finery. Birdsong filters through the walls, sparrows debating your craftsmanship. A 1920s Romanian cobbler claimed starlings nested in his shop each spring, sang instructions for perfect arch support. You listen, hear only caffeine withdrawal and the boot's languid yawn. The sole's patina glints, mica flecks trapped like ancient fireflies. Egyptian sandal makers once kneaded desert glass into treads for pharaohs, luxury traction on palace floors. Your client walks different sands, furrows, and manure, and the occasional shattered whiskey bottle rotating the boot. You study the tongue, its wrinkles softened into something resembling peace. Renaissance tutorials recommended stuffing shoes with rose petals overnight, sweat transformed into perfume. You used sheep's wool, a practical man's potpourri. Your knife hesitates at a glue speck, delete or deify the flaw. Victorian restorers added deliberate character marks to mimic antiquity, forgery as flattery. The blade retreats, honest work deserves honest scars. Sunlight climbs the boot's throat, illuminating the lace grommet's new brass. Byzantine emperors wore boots with jeweled eyelets, each gemstone warding specific demons. Yours repel mud and ingratitude, more potent adversaries by far. A draft riffles your ledger pages, dates, and fees, blurring into an irrelevant psalm. 16th century Italian invoices included poetry in the margins, quatrains about love rats gnawing at souls. You doodle a bluted in flight, its wingspan stretching across 3 payment reminders. The boot's shadow stretches, a leviathan footprint domineering your workbench. French philosophers once wrote essays on shoemaker's ethics. Can one resole a man's identity? You add a dab of grease. Let the overthinkers blister their own heels. Sweat beads on the leather. You blot it hastily. Tang Dynasty artisans aged boots in rice cellars. Patina accelerated by controlled rot. This pair's wrinkles were earned, each crease a harvest moon survived. Footsteps approach, pause, retreat. Not the farmer's dragging gait, but the postman's staccato hurry. His foggy breath appears briefly at the window, a ghostly comma in the morning sentence. The boot's insole warms under your palm, life returning to thawed limbs. Inuit seamstresses once chewed caribou hide to suppleness, their teeth marking every flexible joint. Your teeth stay buried a childhood vow after biting through a nail head. Lightning pain seizes your neck, cobblers, hunchback, protesting its vigil. Whispered profanity hangs in the air, a devolved Gregorian chant. 18th century posture manuals suggested hourly handstands. You settle for cracking vertebrae like a safe's combination. The boot vibrates with passing carriage wheels, a tuning fork resonating at civilization's pitch. Dust motes swirl around it, tiny planets orbiting a leather sun. You resist the childish urge to balance it on your head. Dignity clings by brittle threads. Thumbprints mar the polish again. 1930s Hollywood shoemakers coated boots in gelatin for camera-ready gleam, their clients waddling between takes to avoid creases. You burnish the smudges, imperfections, an illusion best left to film reels. Your stomach growls. The boot absorbs the sound greedily. Ottoman cobblers served clients coffee, spiced with cardamom liquid courage for price negotiations. You sip tepid Earl Grey, its bergamot tang, undercut by solder fumes. Two crows land outside, their beaks click against the windowpane. A Normandy superstition claims corvids pecking at dawn bring news of distant deaths. The boot remains mute, its secrets polished into obscurity. Adjusting the boot's laces, you recall a St. Louis cobbler who tied knots representing customers' unkept vows. These loops stay simple, square, and sturdy, though the right lace sports an extra twist. An accident, an annotation, the farmer will never notice. The workshop clock chimes 9 brassy coughs. Your reflection stares back from the toe cap, older than this morning, younger than the boot's next owner. Louis XIV's shoemaker reportedly kept a hall of mirrors to admire his work. Vanity you counterbalance with deliberate myopia. Wind rattles the door of final test. The boot stands sentinel uncharmed. You rotate it southward, an old Andalusian tradition to ward off the evil eye, then laugh at your own irrationality. Still, can't hurt. Footprints mark where you've paced, worn floorboards scribbling tales of nocturnal doubts. A Kyoto craftsman replaced his planks annually to preserve pure workspace energy. Your boards sag with generations of anxiety, their grooves familiar as your own palm lines. The boot's scent shifts, linseed giving way to impending departure. A Moscow artisan once bottled the aroma of broken-in boots as a nationalist perfume. You inhale deeply memory and mildew, the eau de toilette of the working damned. Reaching for your brush, you freeze. Done is done. Over-polishing erases history, a lesson etched during your first apprenticeship. Nile cobblers left one scuff on ceremonial sandals, a nod to chaos gods. You pocket the brush, let the dust settle where it pleases. Voices drift from the road, children chanting a jump rope rhyme. Their boots slap cobblestones in a rhythmic joy. You press palms against the workbench, wood grains buzzing with transferred energy. The boot answers with its own warmth, borrowed body heat from a winter's vigil. Noon approaches. The farmer's shadow will soon darken your threshold. For now, the boot exists in suspension, yours and not yours. Edwardian etiquette guides insisted craftsmen bow to completed works. You offer a half nod instead, gratitude diluted by exhaustion. Sunlight crests the boot's peak, gilding your initials stamped inside the collar. They'll fade with sweat and time, your presence reduced to a spectral indent. A final wipe with the rag, not improvement, just farewell. The workshop holds its breath, resin-scented air gone still. You lift the boot lighter than it was, heavier than it looks. Somewhere, a pharaoh's sandal disintegrates in a climate-controlled vault. This will meet kinder soil. Footsteps again, heavier this time. The door latch trembles. You set the boot down gently, its surface holding the last coolness of morning. When the farmer enters, he'll see footwear restored. Only you'll notice how the leather drinks the light now, thirsty for roads beyond your sight. The door creaks open a gust of wet earth, and turned soil barges in before him. Mud crusts his work boots like fossilized waves, harvests graffiti. You recognize the pattern, clay from the lower fields, where the creek swallows careless ankles every spring. 14th century farmers waterproofed their boots with beeswax, and cow urine, your nostrils twitch at the memory of that particular historical reenactment. He stands haloed in doorway dust, sunlight carving his silhouette into something biblical. Prodigal boot returns. But this story skips the fatted calf, just a cobbler's calloused palms sliding the repaired pair across stained oak. His thumbs brush the vamp, exploring ridges where leather married thread. Some Prussian menders used to spit on finished work for luck you swallow instead. A sparrow trapped in the eaves chooses this moment to sing. His eyes flick upward, breaking the tension. Heard tell, he rasps, clearing phlegm forged from decades of pre-dawn frost. They're digging up Roman sandals near Colchester, still got nails intact. You nod, aware his compliment wears archaeology's mask. Last month, he'd mentioned Carthaginian crop rotations when praising your new barn door hinges. Rainwater trickles from his hat brim, forming a timid puddle. Historians still argue whether Victorian farmers preferred mended boots to new ones. Pride versus practicality. The answer stands before you, knuckles white around boots that cost him 3 days' wages to resurrect. His wife's bread sits heavy in your gut yeast, and barley become ledger lines. He rotates the left boot, studies the welt. Your pulse thrums in mismatched rhythm with the dripping water clock. That hidden compartment with the pressed flour remains unmentioned. Some secrets aren't yours to confess. Renaissance guilds buried parchment notes in shoe soles, clandestine love letters between artisans and anonymous patrons. This floral cipher stays locked in its leather tomb. Laces. The word surprises you both. His voice rarely ventures beyond single syllables layered in grunt. You gesture to the coiled cords, cotton softened with neatsfoot oil, replaced the frayed ones. Same weave. His nod carves valleys in his leathery neck. 17th century Dutch sailors believed relacing another man's boots formed unbreakable bonds. You suddenly crave black coffee. Wind sneaks through the door, extinguishing the candle you'd lit for ceremony. He stiffens at the scent of burnt beeswax. Polish the counter to buy time, palms skidding over treacle-darkened wood. A Maori legend claims cobblers can read clients' futures in wax drippings. Yours show only a stressed moon and something resembling a turnip. When he finally meets your gaze, you glimpse the boy who once carried his father's plow blade through 5 miles of December snow. The man smothers him quickly. Settling up, he mutters, though last year's mending still haunts your ledger's bottom margin. You wave a dismissive hand, fingers still flecked with dye from Section 19's walnut experiments. His tightened jaw suggests offense, taken rural math, equating charity with pity. The boots tremble slightly as he lifts them, an old terrier greeting its master. Unexpected poetry there. He strides toward the threshold before pausing, body angled halfway between apology and escape. His shadow bisects the workbench, cleaving your world into before boot and after. Rain crescendos outside, nature rushing his exit. 3 decades ago, a typhoon drowned your village's last honest cooper. His widow paid you in salt pork and Chaucer quotes. You let the memory linger as farm mud flakes onto swept floorboards, debris from worlds where boots matter more than banquet shoes. He's gone when you blink, door left ajar like an unfinished sentence. Cold air nips at your collar. On the counter, where the boots rested, gleams a silver crown, enough to cover next month's rent. Austrian emperors used to seal alliances by exchanging left boots. You pocket the coin without checking its date. The sparrow descends, pecking at phantom crumbs where your masterpiece lay. Workshop shadows stretch their limbs, ready to embrace the next broken thing needing rescue. Somewhere beyond the fallow fields, 2 boots sink into fresh mud, their soles imprinting secrets only the earth can translate. Morning frost etches mosaic patterns on your workshop window, the sort of cold that makes leather yawn and protest. You cradle the farmer's left boot, repaired and resurrected, alongside its untouched twin. They lean together like estranged siblings at a funeral. 18th century cordwainers soaked stubborn hides in horse urine. You're tempted to borrow the technique as you wrestle the paired boots into alignment. The right one resists, original leather curling like a defensive fist. Your repairs sit too straight, too eager. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants preferred mismatched boots for practical reasons or folkloric superstitions. You stab an awl through the welt, thread singing as it pulls taut. 10 stitches later, the boots stand united, if not exactly harmonious. A museum curator once told you Victorian work, boots often outlived their owners through constant repair. You wonder if that's a compliment or epitaph. Sunlight glints off the new eyelets, their brass sheen mocking the patterned originals. Some Mongol horsemen buried boots with their dead to prevent limping in the afterlife. The farmer's pair seems determined to earn that honor prematurely. You force the left boot onto your own foot, ankles screaming at the asymmetrical support. The hidden flower compartment digs into your arch, a gentle reprimand. 3 paces across the workshop floor feel like walking through tar. Renaissance cobblers allegedly cursed intractable leather with verses from Dante. You mutter a grocery list instead. The right boot remains impassive on the bench, weather cracked but pliant. You press both soles together. They meet at the toes, but gape at the heels. Ottoman artisans solved such rifts with heated deer tendon glue. You opt for beeswax and spite. The smell triggers a sneeze, startling a mouse from behind your anvil. It scurries past the threshold where silver coins once gleamed. Noon brings thaw and humiliation. You trail the farmer's route, boots crunching through last night's puddle ice. Left foot strides with military precision. Right foot drags like a sullen apprentice. By the third fence post, your hips tilt like a schooner in high wind. 19th century podiatrists blamed half the world's bad moods on uneven footwear. You compose mental apology letters to 7 ex-lovers. Returning, you plunge both boots into a trough. Cold water shocks the leather into temporary compliance. Historians still argue whether Roman sandal discomfort fueled empire-building restlessness. As rivulets drain, the left boot's toe cap puckers, a spiteful wink. You dry them by the hearth, rotating like a kebab skewer. Heat was always your father's flawed solution too. Dusk finds you oiling hinges, anything to avoid the bench. The boots mock from their perch, lopsided monarchs on a walnut throne. A Mesopotamian tablet describes cobblers as peaceweavers between earth and foot. You consider taking up basket weaving instead. The farmer's coin burns in your apron, overpayment poison for the artisan's ego. Moonrise forces the issue. You slump at your workbench, forehead pressed to cool leather. The right boot sighs, or perhaps it's the wind through cracked window panes. 8 generations of Dutch toddlers wore deliberately mismatched shoes to ward off evil spirits. You envy their unself-conscious swagger. Blade in hand, you pick apart 3 key stitches, thread unspooling like a confessions. The chestnut die bleeds slightly, section 19's careful work dissolving. 17th century military cobblers kept battlefield bloodstains as durability tests, a grisly form of quality assurance. Your knife hesitates, the ghost of the pressed flower stays silent. Rebuilding the arch takes until first rooster crow, each layer of leather thinner than pride. By dawn, the boots stand straighter, though not identical. Time will soften what your hands cannot. You line them up, soles kissing now, and imagine the farmer's first step into thawing fields. The sparrow returns perched on the right boot's cuff like a sentinel. You crumble yesterday's bread onto the workbench, a peace offering. As it pecks, the left boot's shadow stretches toward daylight, aching to walk. The sparrow's head jerks up, crumbs tumbling from its beak, as the workshop door exhales a millimeter. You freeze, all hovering over nothing, while dawn paints the floorboards with liquid gold. The bird flees through a rotted roof plank, wing beats stirring motes of wax and regret. Roman cobblers often received payment in wine amphorae, but the glint beneath your threshold winks silver. You wait 5 breaths, like your mother taught you, before opening oven doors, before approaching. The coin sits half-shadowed, an Ottoman axe from a century when cobblers doubled as royal messengers. Its edge nicks your palm, a bite for snooping. Historians still argue whether medieval guilds banned midnight payments to curb witchcraft accusations. Outside, frost-etched grass shows no footprints, as if the farmer levitated his guilt. Rubbing the coin's surface, you taste iron and mint, metal pressed between dead men's hands. 17th century Bavarians hid shoes in chimney stacks to repel demons. You consider stuffing this silver into your stovepipe. Instead, you flick it into the charity jar, copper nobles clattering like teeth. The left boot's shadow stretches toward the sound, still yearning for the road. Pine resin smoke curls from neighboring chimneys. Breakfast time for honest folk. Your fingers hover over the farmer's ledger, a blank page where double payment might be scribbled. Dutch tanners paid neighbors in cheese rinds for generations. An economy of crumbs you've never mastered. The coin glints mockingly through cloudy glass, too clean for its clandestine arrival. You sweep around the threshold, bristles catching on splinters, pretending not to hunt for more silver. Only dust answers. Archaeologists found a Viking cobbler buried with 95 left shoes, his right-footed clients presumably still wandering Valhalla. The farmer's boots now stand aligned, heels kissing in uneasy truce. You resist the urge to kick them apart. Midday sun warms the workshop's belly. The coin's shadow becomes a spearprint on the wall. Napoleonic soldiers melted shoemakers' tools for bullets. Your all feels suddenly heavier. By twilight, you've crafted 3 children's sandals, sloppy work, fueled by unspent curiosity. The charity jar whispers whenever your back turns, a metallic itch between shoulder blades. Nightfall brings rain, drops slithering down the window like liquid mercury. You place the farmer's boots center stage on your workbench, a staging area for unclaimed things. The coin's twin might be buried in mud along his fence line, or perhaps he's planted it beneath his wife's rosemary bush. A 1920s French study claimed left shoes decay faster than right, fodder for doctoral theses nobody wrote. You extinguish the lantern, watching moonlight mutate the workshop into a negative of itself. Tomorrow, someone will find the silver gone from the jar. Or not. The boots breathe in the dark stitches, swelling with humidity, while the sparrow's nest rustles above you. Salvation and surveillance share the same roost. The sparrow's nest sighs above you, its woven twigs cradling the last of the moonlight. Your fingers brush the workbench, grooves worn smooth by generations of restless palms. The charity jar hums faintly, its glass now cool against your wrist. Somewhere beyond these walls, the farmer paces his frost-stiffened field boots caked with earth he'll never scrape clean. Rain taps a dwindling rhythm on the roof, each drop softer than a lullaby. You trace the boot's newly mended sole, threads swollen with rain-scented air. Historians never mention how often cobblers worked by touch alone, fingertips mapping stories the eyes couldn't see. The coin's absence lingers like a phantom toothache, yet the jar feels lighter somehow. Dawn will come, it always does, but for now, let the shadows keep their secrets. The workshop breathes in tandem with you, sawdust settling into the cracks of everything. That Ottoman silver now rides in a beggar's pocket, or melts in a blacksmith's crucible, or spins endlessly down some nameless well. It no longer matters. Your mother's voice drifts through memory. Finish the stitch, child. Even if night argues, the left boot leans into its twin, no longer reaching, simply resting. You close your eyes as the sparrow tucks its head beneath a wing, feathers swallowing the last metallic whisper. Sleep comes not as a thief, but a cobbler stitching the frayed edges of today into tomorrow's leather. Let it all.